It's Platt, and today I try a beer in stereo. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is StereoHopic Volume 3. It's part of a series from the fine folks at Lagunitas. We previously tried the Maximus Colossal IPA there from Lagunitas. Real quick, a little background into the brewery. It was founded in 1993 in the town of Lagunitas, California. That's kind of the Bay Area. It was founded by a gentleman named Tony McGee. He was a home brewer who dared to dream, and did he live the dream? After founding the brewery, after about 1 year of brewery in operation, he decided to move it to Petaluma, California, where they are still today. That's where the current company headquarters are. The first big kind of breakout moment for Lagunitas is when, in 1995, they introduced an IPA to the market. Now, nowadays, they don't seem like a big deal, but I remember in 95, I was managing a bar at the time, and that was when I was first introduced to even Sierra Nevada, the first pale ale I ever drank. Pale ales were kind of the trendy craft beer at the time, and so he introduced an IPA, and that definitely stuck out because you just did not see those back then. And that paid off big for him because from about the late 90s to the mid 2000s or so, Lagunitas was one of the fastest growing breweries in the U.S. Just to give you a little example, in 2004 they were at roughly 29,000 barrels of production. By 2010 they were up to 106,000 barrels, so roughly a four-fold increase over 6 years. That's a lot of growth right there. In 2012, they signed a lease in Chicago to start building a brewery there. Chicago is Tony's hometown, so it just kind of made a lot of sense. They also began negotiations on a potential site in Seattle, and they were looking at a couple other places. Those fell through, and today they just have the two breweries, so the one in California and the one in Chicago. With that kind of success, Big Beer finally came calling, and in 2015, Heineken came in and bought 50% of the company. That caused quite a bit of a stir. First and foremost, Lagunitas obviously lost its craft status, and a lot of people, even still this day, a lot of people still get upset when their favorite craft brewery is bought by Big Beer. That being said, no one really stopped drinking beer. And in 2017, Heineken came back and just bought 100% of the company, bought the rest of the company. They did let Tony stay, and he's still involved with the company today. I do like the fact that a lot of times now, when Big Beer buys a craft brewery, they let the founder stay. Unless he wants to go, they generally let him stay. So that is kind of cool to see, and it's nice that Tony's still with the brewery. Like a lot of successful breweries, though, you don't get through life totally unscathed, and they've had a little bit of controversy. One of the funnier stories is they have had for a long time kind of a connection with cannabis. They've used cannabis terms and applied it in a lot of their marketing. They've used the term 420 a lot. Well, they eventually caught up to them in 2005 when their St. Patrick's Day, they had an employee party, and it got popped by the police. Supposedly there was a fear of them putting cannabis in the beer or selling it or something silly like that. If anybody's ever applied for a federal liquor license, you know that you would not even attempt messing with that, as hard as these to get. But now I guess the local police had extra time on their hands. Let's talk about some of their other beers. First is Hazy Wonder, 6% ABV. This is a hop-driven beer that is unfiltered. It's an unfiltered IPA. Some people are mixed on that. For whatever reason, they like the concept of a clear beer or filtration or whatever. It doesn't bother me, but some people that does turn off. Next, we have Super Cluster, 8% ABV. This is a citra hop-driven beer that they call a mega IPA. Now, I'm not sure what makes it mega. There's no such official beer category, but they call it a mega IPA, and at 8%, it's not even that high of an ABV. Maybe it's got a lot of IBUs, but mega IPA. Next is an interesting beer to me, Willetized. It is at 13.1% ABV. it is a coffee stout aged in Wellet rye barrels, and that's what makes it kind of unique. I've tasted a ton of bourbon barrel aged beers, and I really do like those. I do love getting the wood notes, the kind of caramelized sugars out of the barrel, also kind of the sweetness from the bourbon. Rye interests me because those of you that are whiskey drinkers know that rye has kind of a peppery bite, and it'd be interesting to see how that plays with a coffee stout. Lastly is Batch 1, 6% ABV. It's a California Common, similar to the steam beer from Anchor. And it is the first beer from their innovation lab, kind of their pilot brewery. A lot of times you'll have a brewery inside a brewery to work on new ideas without having to produce 30 barrels at a time, and Batch 1 is their first. Well, before we try this particular beer, though, let's check out the stats. So today I have an interesting topic. Hopefully I haven't covered this before, but after about 170 episodes, sometimes you may repeat, and if I do, I totally apologize. The other day I was telling some just old bartending stories when we were talking about the exorbitant prices of some of the stuff out there, wine, spirits, whatever, and it got me thinking about beer. I know at one time the Rio had like a $100,000 bottle of wine. I've personally poured a $7,000 shot of scotch. So I've seen some insane prices out here in Vegas, but I haven't seen any beer that crazy. So I thought I'd do a little research on some of the most expensive beers, and here's what I found. First comes to us from the fine folks at Brew Dogs. We know those guys will try about anything. It was their End of the World. We talked about this on the snake venom video, that at one time this is one of the beers that had the highest ABV in the world. It's kind of a specialty one-off beer they did, and they had a special package. They would put the bottles inside of stuffed animals. At one time they were getting up to 700 pounds for a bottle. But over the years, out in the secondary market, when they quit producing it, whatever, now I want to say they've gone as high as $20,000 for one of these. Brew Dogs has also at one point in time been the claimant of the highest priced beer. I know when they had their TV show, they did an episode where they claimed to have produced at the time the highest priced beer, like at $2,400 or $2,500, something like that. Next is probably the high-priced beer that most people can have access to. I'm not going to say you can find it easily, but it is out there in the market, and probably your local liquor store could order it for you. And that is Sam Adams Utopias. Utopias is also one of the beers that at one time was claiming to have, be one of the highest ABV beers out there. Roughly, it's around the 25% range. What makes Sam Adams Utopias nice is it's actually still a really good beer, and they have a real cool bottle. It looks like a copper brew kettle. The bottle itself has some kind of collector's value, even if there's no beer in it. Today, you're probably looking around $250 a pop, roughly. Definitely check with your liquor store if you're looking to buy. Lastly is a cool beer. It was called Space Barley, come to us from the fine folks at Sapporo. Supposedly, they were able to get their hands on some barley that was grown in the International Space Station, and they used some of that barley in a batch beer. They did roughly about 250 cases, and I don't know if it was a charitable thing with it or not, but they anyway threw some of this space barley in, produced a beer, and I want to say they were getting around $100 a six-pack. Now today they're probably collector's items, so they're probably worth a lot more, and again it was a limited run, but those are just some of the highest priced beers. Again, you don't see the same exorbitant price in beer that you do in wine and spirits or whatever, but I thought that was interesting. Enough about that. Let's drink a little beer. All right, we got a nice kind of lighter copper, a little bit hazy there. For the nose in this. Ooh, nice malt. Malt more dominant than hops. Yeah, quite a bit. So I mean, I picked just up a hair, but the malt is the dominant on the nose. Let's give it a try. Oh, that's nice. The hop really mingles with the malt, especially on the finish. A lot of times you'll get malt sweetness up front and then maybe a hop bitterness in the back, but this really, the malt and the hop really stick to each other pretty well throughout the whole, you know, even in the back, even as it lingers in the finish. That's nice, got a decent body, but it's not viscous in any way. I'd be interested to know the recipe on this, because in a certain sense, I don't know why it's reminding my palate of almost like a Blue Moon, though. Like, to me, I can almost envision this with a lemon or an orange slice with it, like you would a Blue Moon. Yeah, even though it's a lot, you know, higher ABV, higher IBU, bigger beer than something like that, I can still almost see throwing citrus in this. That's. Also, there's a complexity to this. I can't imagine there's anything like coriander or grains of paradise or stuff like that you would have in a Blue Moon style beer. But there's just a flavor complexity to this that I can't put my finger on. But man, that's a pretty good little beer. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out a good product. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or beers that you'd like me to try, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.